Welcome back to Case Closed Anime Review, episode number. What is it? This one is. When it comes up here, it is. I know it's like 2 something. Oh, 225. Yep, 225. As a matter of fact, the newest chapter is 1125. Yep. Yeah, so once again, we're doing an original episode. As a matter of fact, next week's episode is also an original as well. Yep. So it's the Rube Goldberg machine, part 2. So yeah. So basically, it does pick up. Now it appears as though that they're learning from a previous long-running mistake that what they do for Case Closed, where like when they do the Amherst episode, it's like whatever they try to establish in part 1 is like some of it is ignored in part 2. Because that's the big problem is in original two-parters. They tend to ignore stuff established for these cases in their next episodes. Like, they just ignore it. And like, oh. So, they find out the guy who died last episode, Shima, where, like, oh, it's a suicide. Nope, it's a murder. It's basically suicide the cover murder because he's wearing a very expensive suit. But the scarf looks like the one that Mori would wear. Yep. So, like, oh crap, he's been strangled. With what? Well, they do show what it is, but they never find the murder weapon for this one. Nope, they do figure who did this. Yep, they do. But as for, well, where's the murder weapon? But apparently it's some kind of, like, ribbon. Very strong ribbon. That's what caused a little mark on his neck. And it's like, oh, the whole case is like a Rube Goldberg machine. And like, oh, the finishes are connected. And of course, they do figure out it is connected, but not really. It's very loosely connected. It's kind of like 2 separate murders, but they're related. So, that's investigating. So, who killed the chairman from the first episode, from the first part? Why, it's the guy basically who's been a jerk the whole time. The one who's been so bitter about the fact the chairman stole the woman who's supposed to be his wife to be his. Yep, because he was so bitter. And then, okay, so if he killed the chairman, who killed the other guy? What was the same person? Nope. It was the guy who wanted the sauce. Yeah, it was just spontaneous. Yeah, and the way they figured him out? Simple. The scarf. And how they figure out the first guy that he's responsible for the murder? Simple. His very expensive shoes. Yep, his shoes. Shoes, they mentioned the show, those are one of 500 pairs ever made for that shoe. And so that's pretty much how they solved that problem. I'm like, okay, interesting. So, like, okay, things solved? Nope. Because this up in the previous episode, what they do continue here, where thanks to a rubber groove machine, it sets up this mysterious phone call calling somebody. Excuse me. Also, the anonymous tips that the police are getting all over the place. That was it. That was the Secret Sauce guy. Yep, he was responsible for it. So apparently, the guy who was bitter, so he did that last episode. The whole thing with the videotape thing, the cassette tape recording of like that phone call. Yeah, that was him. So they established he was responsible for that. So it turns out the chairman's wife is being summoned someplace, and it turns out she's being summoned to go to the very church he was supposed to marry the guy who killed her husband. Which apparently, when they about to exchange their wedding vows, he took her in the middle of the ceremony. And this is something they never really explained. Like, okay, they showed that he did this, but why? Why the heck would he steal another man's possible wife from him just so he can marry this other guy? Like, they never really go into it. Apparently, it's also like a prenup where if she cheats on him, she gets nothing. But if he cheats on her, He gets no punishment. It's a one-way prenup. Yeah, this I'm like, really? So was it a fair marriage? Who knows? They really don't go into it at all. And then thanks to, get this, so Conger is not put to sleep here. Nope, it's the ED Inspector. So, and of course, the ED Inspector goes Rand, well, via Conan, go with them because she's very useful. And she is. So she picks up a piece of like candle thing, picks it up thanks to her raw strength, and throw it at a freaking bell that's about to drop on them. And with a pillar, like almost like a beam. And lucky enough that Maury was one to save the day. And they expect to all the credit, despite the fact it was basically those two responsible for it. But really fun ending. And as for the woman who charged the club, who was also on suspects, yeah, she's clear and free of the murder. Yep, she's clear and free. And you're like, really? Then why was she here? Because she was a suspect. Yeah, all because she was a suspect. So they decided to have her here and, well, oh yeah, they also figured out that she was part of that Rube Goldberg club. How? The two moles on her face. As for if she basically went to Conan for steak, that they'll go into because they cut to basically, and apparently the secret sauce, this is one particular thing was in the sauce the whole time. And for some reason, the chairman would not give it to the guy because they think he was about to die. And they did die. Now, why? Now, there's a lot of questions basically you have when you finish watching this two-parter. Number one, why did he take another man's wife? Number two, why was he also hesitant to give this other guy the secret sauce, the recipe? Like, why? Why was he being so stubborn? You're like, okay. Also, it was suspected that the owner, that the club hostess, that possibly he had an affair with her, but she absolutely denied it. That they're just friends. That there's no relationship. They're just really good friends. He helped establish their business. Fine, okay. So it's like her whole thing is like immediately wrapped up. Plus, I love the conversation that she had with Cohen in the last episode because I have got handed to this two-parter. With the exception of those two small problems, this was a really good anime original two-parter. Because no one half the things are bad. They're just like, it felt as though like they have. Excuse me. Where it's like they go through like maybe there's some rewrites, possibly, or the fact that the two-parters got two different writers. This one felt as though that they did have the same writer and they did plan this out thoroughly. I mean, he was suspected the guy who was a jerk, but he was responsible for all this. Yeah, there was hints of it. There's definitely hints of it, but yeah. But great two-parter. Loved it. Just two small problems basically I had with it. And also I like the fact this is very action-packed. Like an action-oriented two-part. I'm like, wow. Who would have thunk basically? This is something basically the level of action you see here is something you usually see in canon cases or the movies. Not usually in original two-parters. Yeah. So, now moving on to the newest chapter of the manga, which seems like it's the end of the arc, but doesn't feel like it. Doesn't say, like, see you next time. Like, see you, like, in a few months. Nope, it just... By the way, this is chapter 1125, the 2-Point Plan. Also, they changed the name of the Detective Boys to the Junior Detective League. I don't know why they changed the name for here, but they do. So, Conan says, like, so they find out where Shori is, and they make basically a paper airplane, and they fly it off. And then, of course, you have Sato basically in a call from Conan about where the possible the kidnapped victim is, and Shuko was there. And he's like getting very jealous of the fact that Churro is, oh, he's with some pretty boy. He does not know that's Takagi. Nope. It's like, huh? Jugo, we need backup. Yeah, he just is there, just having dinner, and then of course the woman he's got a crush on basically just happens to be. And it's like, huh? Like, oh, Inspector. Yeah, and of course basically they find out, and of course they find the girl, and well, yeah, and of course like ooh, and it turns out it's actually the guy with the teacup. He was the guy who was the writer. And then he tries to attack, like, you're a cop, aren't you? Get out of the way. If you want to fight. And here's the thing. There are like 3 cops behind her. 3 detectives. One, of course, is wearing her uniform. And then apparently switch her clothes back. Oh, it's a guy that's not finding whose butt he saw. Nope. Like, they arrest the guy, and it seems like everything is all wrapped up. Oh, but not really. And then they discover the Cabaman 25th anniversary pen. Like, you weren't the whole time? It opens up like, oh crap, there's a bug in it. And it turns out Amuro's been listening on it. I'm like, that's interesting. And it just says to be continued. Now, that does not mean this arc is over. I have to say probably the first portion of this arc is over with. But I'm like, this is interesting. Amuro's been listening on the whole conversation. Like, well, the reason why, because basically Rum is telling him to hurry up. So, this is what he's doing. He's driving this very expensive car he's driving. But, absolute really good chapter. 10 out of 10. Okay, so that's a particular view. Next up is going to be, I'm going to do just one comic corner, and then I'm just going to go straight to do Tales of Wedding Rings. Okay, next video. Bye.